A treatise on modern theistic Satanism, theology, philosophy, and ritual practice. This treatise offers a systematic and comprehensive overview of a specific school of modern theistic Satanism, as articulated in the works of Diane Vera and Stephen Bleach. It is not intended as a history of Satanism in general, but rather as a deep exploration of a contemporary theological framework and its corresponding ritual system. This particular path is grounded in a here and now principle, distinguishing it from traditions that claim ancient, infallible revelations. Instead, it seeks to engage directly with the observable social, cultural, and spiritual forces that shape the modern world, presenting a living spiritual tradition defined by its continuous engagement with, and critical challenge to, the cultural and intellectual currents of the contemporary world. Part 1. Theological and Philosophical Foundations. 1.1. Context and Core Tenets. Before any ritual practice can be properly understood, its theological and philosophical underpinnings must be firmly established. Ritual without belief is mere theater. Belief without a coherent framework is formless. This section, therefore, will analyze the core beliefs of this particular path. It will focus on the nature of its central deity, its distinctly modern polytheistic structure, and its positioning relative to mainstream Abrahamic religions, and the complex cultural currents of the contemporary West. 1.2. The nature of Satan, Azazel, challenger of dogma. Within the theology of the Church of Azazel, Satan, Azazel, is a multifaceted and transcendent figure, revered as the god of this world. This conception deliberately moves beyond narrower occult interpretations that might confine Satan to a single elemental correspondence, such as fire. It also stands in stark contrast to the mainstream Jewish concept of Satan, a common noun, not a proper name, referring to a heavenly prosecuting attorney or police agent who functions within the divine order. Instead, this path presents Satan as a champion of independent thought and a challenger of all dogma, not merely Christian dogma. The source texts describe him as an entity who enjoys challenging dogma in general and who puts all orders to the test, whether they be ancient religious traditions or emerging modern ideologies. This perspective posits Satan as a complex being with aspects corresponding to all four classical elements: air, fire, water, and earth, underscoring the necessity of a balanced approach to his reverence. He's seen as encouraging sensuality and a desire for worldly power, earth, inspiring the acquisition of forbidden knowledge, air, and embodying the fiery passion of rebellion, fire. Furthermore, he possesses a watery aspect connected to intuition, primal emotion, and the subconscious mind. These are faculties the source texts identify as the things you need most in order to do magic, directly linking this elemental aspect to the practical foundation of the practitioner's work. This holistic view frames Satan not simply as an adversary to one religion, but as a fundamental force that stimulates progress by continually challenging humanity to expand its knowledge beyond the confines of any single belief system. 1.3. A polytheistic pantheon for the modern West. The Church of Azazel operates within a polytheistic framework, centered on a primary reverence for Satan, Azazel, and a secondary reverence for 5 other deities, collectively termed the rising gods of the modern West. These gods are understood to be distinct from Satan, but act as his allies in opposing the Abrahamic would-be monopoly on spirituality. Their inclusion is justified by their profound symbolic relevance to the defining cultural, social, and technological trends of the modern era. The 5 rising gods are Lilith, drawing from medieval Jewish folklore where she is queen of the demons and Satan's wife. The modern Lilith is re-envisioned as a powerful feminist icon. She represents pride, sexual freedom, especially non-reproductive, and the destruction of tyrannical traditions, embodying the cultural shifts that have redefined gender and sexuality. In the post-1960 S. West, Prometheus, the titan from Greek mythology who stole fire from the heavens for humanity. He symbolizes the advancement of science, knowledge, and technology. In an age defined by technological progress and the conflict between scientific inquiry and religious dogma, Prometheus represents the drive for unfettered intellectual exploration. Ishtar, the ancient Babylonian goddess of goddesses, known also as Astarte and Inanna, a multifaceted deity of love, war, civilization, and wild nature. She is seen as an ancient precursor to the modern Wiccan concept of the goddess. She represents the resurgence of goddess-centric spirituality and a counterbalance of purely technological worldviews through an appreciation for the earth. Pan, the horned god of the wild from Greek mythology, reinterpreted by modern pagans as a symbol of fleshly delight, masculine vigor, and untamed nature. He represents a down-to-earth spirituality rooted in sensual experience and the primal forces of the natural world, standing in opposition to religious worldviews that seek to suppress or transcend the flesh. Lucifer-of-Sophia, a figure synthesized from Gnostic traditions, where Sophia, wisdom, often in the form of the serpent, brought spiritual knowledge to humanity in defiance of a lesser, ignorant creator god. This Lucifer is distinct from Satan and represents the pursuit of esoteric spirituality, religious innovation, and individualistic wisdom against the conformity of exoteric religion. 1.4. The here and now principle and the spiritual conflict. A core doctrine of this path is the here and now principle in theology. This principle rejects claims of ancient infallible revelation and instead grounds theological understanding in observable, social, cultural, and religious trends. Belief is not derived from holy books presumed to be timelessly true, but from an analysis of the spiritual forces actively shaping the contemporary world. From this perspective, a central spiritual conflict is identified: the struggle between the patriarchal Abrahamic God, termed Yahweh P, and the combined forces of the Lilithian order and other non-Abrahamic traditions. The Lilithian order refers to the emerging, socially liberal, individualistic, and post-Christian culture of the modern West, which includes feminism, the LGBTQ+ community, and modern paganism. Within this conflict, Satan's role is uniquely transcendent. He is not merely the leader of one side. While he is credited with opening the gate for the rising gods and the emergence of the Lilithian order, he is also positioned as the force that challenges all social orders to prevent them from hardening into new oppressive dogmas. He puts the Lilithian order to the test, just as he does the Abrahamic one, ensuring that the drive for progress and individual thought remains dynamic and never settles into a new, unchallenged conformity. 1.5. Concluding analysis of Part 1, this theological framework, with its modern pantheon and analysis of contemporary spiritual conflicts, provides the essential why behind the ritual practices of this tradition. It establishes a worldview in which the practitioner is an active participant in an ongoing spiritual and cultural evolution. With this foundation laid, we now turn to the how, the practical disciplines required for the magician's internal development. Part 2. The principles of magical practice. 2.1. From belief to action. The inner work. A robust theology must be paired with disciplined practice if it is to have any transformative effect. A belief system provides the map, but it is the inner work of the practitioner that powers the journey. This section deconstructs the fundamental mental and psychological skills required for effective magic, drawing primarily from the teachings of Stephen Bleach. These techniques are not presented as optional suggestions, but as essential prerequisites for any successful ritual work. They are the foundational disciplines through which the practitioner learns to focus consciousness and project will. 2.2. The inner temple, mind control, and mental discipline. Stephen Bleach argues that mastery of meditation, visualization, and concentration is the key to magical powers. These abilities are not esoteric gifts, but skills to be developed through rigorous and consistent exercise. They form the bedrock upon which all subsequent ritual and spellcasting are built. The core exercises are presented as a structured progressive path. 1. Relaxation and motionlessness. The initial stage requires the practitioner to sit in a straight-back chair, hands on legs, and maintain stillness. The goal is to overcome the body's natural restlessness. The source material specifies aches, itches, and discomfort, and the mind's tendency to wander by focusing solely on the rhythm of the breath. 2. Concentration. Once a state of physical calm can be maintained for an extended period, for example, 30 minutes, the next stage is to actively still the mind. This involves visualizing a blank screen and gently pushing away all intrusive thoughts, striving to achieve a state of total quiescence. This is the shift from simple relaxation to focused mental silence. 3. Advanced techniques. To further hone concentration, several alternative methods are suggested. These include the use of mantras, such as the repeated vibration of Ave Satana, to occupy the mind, focusing the gaze on an object like a candle flame, or visualizing simple, stable geometric images, such as a triangle or square, and holding them steady in the mind's eye without distortion. 2.3. The Pyramid of Magic. Cornerstones of the magical will. Beyond the foundational skills of mind control lies a conceptual framework known as the Pyramid of Magic. This consists of 4 overlapping principles that are brought into play simultaneously during any magical act. They are not sequential steps, but integrated faculties that must be cultivated in daily life to be effective in ritual. Imagination. This is the faculty for indulging desires and creating the rich mental landscape where magic takes root. The magician is encouraged to surround themselves with art, music, and literature that stimulates this dark creative faculty. The personal temple or ritual space should be decorated not according to rigid tradition, but in a way that personally excites and inspires the practitioner, giving the imagination free rein to construct a potent, magical environment. Will is the developed capacity to channel emotions and assert oneself in the world. It is the focused force that directs the energy summoned by the imagination. This faculty is strengthened through the consistent practice of the meditation and visualization exercises, as well as by making and keeping commitments to oneself and others. This practice forges a will that is strong and reliable, reflecting the core tenet that a magician's word is a magician's word. It is not to be taken lightly. That in this context, faith is not blind religious belief, but a profound and cultivated confidence in one's own magical abilities. This is not an arrogant assumption of power, but a realistic self-assurance built through experience. It is recommended that a practitioner begin with smaller, more achievable workings to build a track record of success. Attempting a feat that one secretly doubts is possible risks failure, which can damage this crucial self-confidence. Faith grows in tandem with ability. Secrecy, the final cornerstone, is the strategic importance of discretion. A developing magician's faith is a fragile thing, vulnerable to the mockery and skepticism of the uninitiated. By keeping one's practices and aspirations secret, the practitioner protects their inner work from negative external influences that could undermine their confidence and sabotage their efforts. Secrecy creates a protected space where the magical persona can develop without interference. 2.4. Concluding analysis of Part 2. These principles and practices constitute the essential internal preparation for the magician. Once the mind is disciplined through concentration, and the will is fortified by an understanding of the pyramid of magic, the practitioner is ready to construct the external, sacred space for the ritual itself. Part 3. The Architecture of Ritual. 3.1. Creating Sacred Space. From Mundane to Magical. The transition from the mundane world to a state of heightened ritual consciousness is not accidental. It requires deliberate preparation of both the external environment and the internal state of the practitioner. The physical space must be transformed from an ordinary room into a temple, a vessel for divine forces. This section will outline the complete structure of a formal ritual as presented by Diane Vera, detailing the process from initial preparations and the marking of sacred boundaries to the invocation of divine forces. 3.2. Material and personal preparations. A successful ritual begins long before the first invocation is uttered. Careful preparation is a sign of respect for the forces being called and essential for minimizing distractions. The following elements form a practical checklist for formal ritual. The ritual space. An altar, a small table will suffice, dedicated solely to ritual use if possible. A black altar cloth. At least one black candle in a secure, stable holder. Satanic symbols, such as a Baphomet, to decorate the altar and room. A clean and uncluttered room with special attention to a clean floor. Ritual attire. Comfortable all-black clothing reserved exclusively for ritual purposes. Alternatively, nudity is acceptable and, for certain rites like self-initiation, recommended to symbolize openness and the shedding of superficiality. Safety precautions. Knowledge of the location of a fire extinguisher. The area around the altar should be clear of flammable materials. If burning incense or paper, the smoke alarm should be temporarily disconnected, with a prominent reminder note to reconnect it afterward. Personal readiness. Physical cleansing. A bath or shower. An hour or two before the ritual. A hearty meal and sufficient liquids consumed several hours prior to avoid distraction from hunger, thirst, or the need to use the restroom. A period of at least 30 minutes before the ritual for relaxation and mental preparation, often accompanied by awe-inspiring music. For example, Karl Orff's Carmina Burana. And meditation. Disconnection of the telephone and other potential interruptions. 3.3. Marking the boundaries. Banishing and grounding. To shift consciousness from the mundane to the magical, practitioners employ ritual markers at the beginning and end of the ceremony. These actions serve to clear the space of unwanted ambient energies and signal to the subconscious mind that a sacred operation is underway. Several methods are presented with varying levels of complexity. Method description, suitability. Elaborate banishing, based on ceremonial magic traditions, such as satanic variants of the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, LBRP. This involves specific names, directions, and visualizations. It is generally considered more of a distraction for novices because it needs to be practiced by itself many times before it can become useful. Simple markers suited for novices or for rituals that are primarily devotional rather than magical. These methods are often nonverbal and can include ringing a solemn-sounding bell in the four quarters or listening to appropriate short pieces of music to frame the ritual. Grounding. A technique to absorb beneficial earth energies and discharge excess or unwanted energy. It is often visualized as roots or a tail extending from the practitioner's body deep into the earth. Grounding is typically recommended at the end of a ritual as an alternative to a second banishing. It is noted that some traditions, such as OFS demonolatry, view banishing as potentially disrespectful to the invoked spirits. Reflecting this concern, Diane Vera's personal recommendation is to perform a banishing at the beginning of the ritual to clear the space, but to conclude with thanks and a grounding exercise rather than a second banishing, so as not to disrespect the powers that have been called. 3.4. Invocation and correspondence, calling the powers. With the sacred space established and marked, the practitioner proceeds with a sequence of invocations to call the divine forces. In Vera's standard ritual format, this follows a specific order, moving from the more immanent to the more transcendent. First is the call to the rising gods of our age. This is recited at the beginning of the ritual proper, immediately after the opening markers. Its purpose is to connect the practitioner with the dynamic spiritual forces, Lilith, Prometheus, Ishtar, Pan, and Lucifer-of-Sophia, that are seen as actively shaping the modern world. Second are the greetings to the princes and the legions of hell. This involves facing each of the four cardinal directions and invoking a specific aspect of Satan associated with that direction and its corresponding element. A common system of correspondence is East Air, Lucifer-Azazel, South Fire, Iblis, West Water, Ancient Serpent, North Earth, Belial. This practice is not meant to imply that these aspects are separate entities. The purpose of this practice is to remind yourself of various different aspects of Satan in a balanced way, ensuring that the practitioner does not fixate on a single, narrow conception of the deity. 3.5. And concluding analysis of Part 3. The meticulous preparation of the space, the marking of boundaries, and the sequential invocation of divine powers together create the complete ritual framework. This structure serves as a stable and consecrated container for the central transformative act of the ceremony. With the temple built and the powers called, the practitioner is now ready for the core purpose of the ritual, exemplified by the foundational rite of self-initiation. Part 4. The path of initiation. A foundational rite. 4.1. The threshold of a new beginning. The preliminary self-initiation rite stands as the culmination of the theological, psychological, and ritual principles previously discussed. It is a formal act that synthesizes belief and practice into a single, potent ceremony. The specific purpose of this rite is not to forge an irrevocable, lifelong pact, but to serve as a preliminary, non-binding declaration of intent. It is designed for the new practitioner to consciously deepen their connection to Satan, state their reverence, and begin the process of unlocking their own innermost potential. 4.2. The philosophy of self-initiation, a core argument presented by Diane Vera, is her strong disagreement with performing lifelong dedication rites as a first ritual step. She likens such an act to marrying someone you just met yesterday, emphasizing that oaths to Satan should be taken with the utmost seriousness, and only after years of dedicated practice and self-discovery. This preliminary rite is offered as a more prudent and respectful alternative. The rite is often paired with a rite of blasphemy, though the two are performed separately. The recommended order depends on the individual's background. For a recent deconvert from a religion like Christianity, it is suggested to perform the self-initiation first to build a positive connection with Satan before engaging in an irrevocable blasphemy. Conversely, someone who left their former religion long ago may find it more effective to perform the rite of blasphemy first to clear away any final residual attachments. Crucially, this rite requires intellectual preparation. The practitioner is expected to be familiar with various forms of theistic Satanism and to have intellectually deconstructed their former belief system. The rite is not an escape, but a conscious, well-reasoned step onto a new path. 4.3. The three-night rite, a step-by-step guide. The preliminary self-initiation rite is a formal ceremony to be performed on 3 consecutive nights. The following steps provide a comprehensive guide to its structure and execution. 1. Preparation. The practitioner should follow the full preparations outlined in Part 3. For this specific rite, nudity is strongly recommended to symbolize the shedding of artificiality and an opening of the innermost self. The altar should be set up so that the practitioner faces west, a direction traditionally associated with Satan and the element of water. Intuition, emotion, the subconscious. 2. Opening markers. Perform a preferred beginning of ritual marker, such as ringing a bell or a simple banishing, to clear the space and shift consciousness. 3. Call to the rising gods. Recite the call to the rising gods of our age, to align the working with the forces of the modern world. Newcomers are advised to repeat the call 3 times to solidify their intent. 4. Invocation to Satan. Recite a reverent and emotionally moving invocation to Satan. This should be a piece that mentions his varied attributes and is respectful without being self-denigrating. 5. Greetings to the princes, facing west, then turning counterclockwise to face south, then east, then north. Recite the greetings to the princes and the legions of hell in each direction. The practitioner then turns to face west again to complete the sequence. 6. The core act. This is the heart of the ritual. Facing west again, the practitioner recites the prayer of acknowledgement of Satan's rulership 3 times. The attitude should be one of surrender to your own innermost self, which is understood to be in alignment with Satan's will. The text of the prayer is as follows. 7. Contemplation. Following the prayer, the practitioner pauses for a period of silent contemplation, focusing on the presence and power of Satan. The duration should be determined by what feels right in the moment. 8. Personal prayer. The practitioner offers a personalized prayer to Satan for guidance on their path, whether in magical development, mundane affairs, or spiritual understanding. 9. Receiving guidance. This step is optional and intended for more experienced practitioners. It may involve entering a trance state or using a form of divination to receive a more direct response to the request for guidance. Novices are advised to skip this step and remain open to receiving guidance in a more spontaneous fashion in the days to come. 10. Closing. The ritual is concluded with thanks and farewells to the invoked powers, Satan, the legions, and the rising gods. A final end of ritual marker, such as grounding, is performed before the candle is extinguished. 4.4. After the rite. Integration and continued practice. The work of initiation does not end when the ritual is complete. The experience must be integrated into daily life through disciplined practice to solidify the connection that has been established. Repetition. The full ritual must be performed for 3 consecutive nights to reinforce its impact. Daily devotion. For several months following the rite, the prayer of acknowledgement of Satan's rulership should be recited daily, both upon waking and before sleep, as a devotional practice. Skill development. The practitioner must commit to the daily practice of meditation, visualization, and the other magic-related mental skills. The initiation is intended to make learning these skills easier, and this opportunity must be seized through consistent effort. 4.5. And concluding analysis of Part 4. The self-initiation rite, supported by a commitment to continued practice, is not an end in itself. It is a formal beginning, the crossing of a threshold onto a dedicated spiritual and magical path, marked by conscious intent and disciplined self-development. Conclusion. Synthesis of a modern satanic path. This treatise has detailed a school of theistic Satanism characterized by a unique synthesis of modern thought and disciplined esoteric practice. Its foundation is an intellectual and contemporary theology, one that engages with observable cultural currents through a here-and-now principle rather than appealing to ancient authority. This belief system underpins a rigorous methodology of practice, emphasizing the cultivation of psychological discipline as the prerequisite for effective ritual. The entire structure, from its polytheistic pantheon of rising gods to its carefully architected rites, presents a path of self-evolution that fundamentally challenges all forms of dogma, including its own. It stands not as a revival of a forgotten religion, but as a dynamic living tradition actively engaged with the spiritual, cultural, and intellectual landscape of the contemporary world.